sir. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to chat.
Yes, sir. So let's begin our journey into your good work by asking this. I always start with this question. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed our world, our lives, the way that we live today. How did you get through the coronavirus era, and how has it influenced the way that you live and work today?
Well, the all of the COVID lockdowns happened at a major transition point for me and my family. In December 2019, my wife and I both quit our jobs and put our house on the market. We were going to travel the world for a year with our then 3-year-old daughter before she started school. And of course, January, things started to change a little bit. And at the same time, I was also changing from full-time employed into what I now do, which is teach and write about communication skills. And so we went from having a global travel plan to having multiple lockdowns, multiple countries. We had 13 homes in 3 countries in 12 months, and we lived out of only what we could fit in our car while our house was all packed up in storage. So it was quite an event for us.
Wow. I got married in July of that year, and then we were going to sell and buy a house, and I was like, all right, let's just do it. It's time and I'm so glad that we did it because we literally moved into our new place on January 1, and then everything closed down, and I kept thinking if it would have happened after that, because everything, especially with real estate, turned into a nightmare.
Oh yeah, our house sold the day before the first big lockdown. It was
Wow.
crazy.
That is crazy. So let's get into what you do on a daily basis to synthesize all of the things that are you. I'm going to put you in front of 12-year-olds. You're at career day, and the kid in the back of the room wants to know what you do for a living. How do you answer it?
Yeah, so I write books and I teach adults what is in those books. And the topic is communicating every day at work. A lot of communication people will teach public speaking. I don't teach that. I teach how to help people communicate at work in everyday situations so that they spend less time in meetings, have fewer emails, so that when they ask for something, the other person actually understands what it is that's being asked for. And I particularly help experts. They could be experts in anything, bioengineers, software developers, finance people, accountants. I help them talk to people who aren't experts in a way that can be understood.
So when I went to college, I wanted to get into broadcasting. And I went to the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and they did not have a broadcasting program. There was another one in the UM system that did. So I majored in communication studies, and I was fascinated throughout, especially in higher level communication courses, how much of what we do is not only nonverbal, but almost subconscious. And I mean, there's a lot of conscious ways that you can do it, but communication at its core is an absolutely fascinating thing. And it was only a byproduct of the fact that I wanted to get into broadcasting. But when I look back on all those years of intensely getting into it, writing papers and looking into it, it's a completely Pandora's box.
Oh, it's a huge, huge topic. And it's one that unfortunately has a very simple name, which is communication skills. And it's vast. And to give an example of how vast it is in that Pandora's box, if a job advert includes communication skills as a top 5 must-have, and almost all of them do. If you go to any of the jobs posting sites, you'll see communication skills up there. The trouble is, there's no one communication skills. If you were hiring someone who was an excellent presenter, sales presenter, that is a very different set of communication skills from someone who's an excellent negotiator
Yeah.
or somebody who can translate science into everyday language. And if you hired someone who's an excellent communicator in presenting, and then you put them in a job which required de-escalating conflict every day, they might be a terrible communicator in that situation. So the Pandora's box says communication skills on it, but when you open it up, you could spend a lifetime exploring and mastering just one of those skills, which is why you have people like Mark Bowden, who is a world expert on body language. You have Vin Yang, who is absolutely fantastic on tone of voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lots and lots of different areas that you can go under this one umbrella.
I keep thinking about the example of Stephen Hawking, Brief History of Time, best-selling book. That was totally a dumbed down research paper. that he gave to the blue collar people to understand science, right? And we get those sometimes because he really did. He broke down the theory of relativity and all of these high level quantum. Because if you get into like the real guts of what he's saying, it could just blow the top off of you. But he kind of pulled it into something that we can understand.
He did. I'd want to change one of the phrases you used, though. You said it was dumbing down, and
Yeah,
it's
right.
often used, and I would change that to he made it relevant.
Sure.
And here's an example that I think everyone can get behind to understand the difference. Let's say I brought a new coffee machine into the office, and somebody said, "Hey, how does this work?" They're not asking me about the copper heating coil or the water pressure through the coffee capsules or the intricacies of the metal plastic interfaces. They're not interested in how it works. When they ask how it works, what they mean is, how do I use it? Where do I put my cup? Where do I put the coffee? What
Yeah,
button do I press? And so my answer to how it works would need to be relevant to them and how they would use that info. And
totally.
that's what Stephen Hawking did with the theory of time. He made it relevant and relatable.
And it's interesting because you're totally right. It's almost like trying to explain technology to someone. It's all about simplifying simplifying what needs to be done for the end user, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. And it's relevance to them. And relevance, it sounds like a vague term. So here's a more specific version. When you want to make a message, any message at all, relevant to the other person, show how it impacts them.
Yeah,
You want to talk about a change to a piece of work? Okay, don't talk about the change to the work. Talk about what it means to them. How does it change the effort they need to put in? How does it change the outcomes that they care about? If we can focus on that relevance, then what we say becomes far more understandable. And that is simplifying.
so I got thrown into a situation yesterday like that. I'm an IT technician by day for a school district, and I had to pick up some iPads that had issues. And the librarian caught me and said, I need you to give a swift talk to these kids in the room because they have they've changed all the icons on the iPad to look one way and it's all purple, right? So I'm like, how am I going to do this? I'm just like kind of coming in. It's finally nice in Kansas City. It's in the 70s. It's like I'm not in that mental space, but I went in there and I said, look, guys, we have a lot of stuff that we do in IT. And what you're going to do is you're not going to have your iPad for a while because of this incident. So you're just going to have this cessation and you're going to learn naturally that this is something that you probably shouldn't do. Are you going to try to do it? Maybe you will, but you know that if you do it, you're not going to have this device. So there's a part of what you're saying where if you draw out something, because you could just read them the riot act like you do kids, but it's not
Yeah.
going to mean anything unless you kind of break it down to something that's understandable to them.
Absolutely. You went straight to the impact. The
Yeah,
impact to them is they don't have the iPads.
yeah,
And a second thing that can work really well in that sort of situation to help them understand what they're doing. So, from what you described, they're changing all the icons to look very similar, so the next person who uses the iPad can't really tell the difference. Is
yeah,
that what the problem was?
pretty much. Yeah.
Great. So, in the description, where it might seem like a fun thing to do, and you've given them the direct impact to themselves, if you want to help them understand the broader implications of what they're doing, we use an analogy and say, hey, it would be like going to McDonald's or another fast food restaurant, and you go to the touch screen to place your order, and every picture is of the same burger.
Yeah.
How do you pick what
Uh-huh.
you're going to eat?
That's it.
That's what you've done for the next person who's going to pick up this iPad.
Absolutely. Let's stay in that young, youthful realm. What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream job?
Oh, I wanted to grow up to be a dinosaur. But after I got over that, which was probably in my mid-teens, I really struggled with picking a career. I never had that big dream or really strong passion that some kids do. And I kind of admire the ones that do because it gives them focus and direction.
Yeah.
But I mostly sort of fit in the flying and engineering space, which is why I ended up doing aerospace engineering as my degree, and I started learning to fly. So sort of that pilot, but also build it, design it with my hands area. But I really did struggle to have a clear idea as to what I wanted.
So take me back to your beginnings in England. What were these, whether conscious or subconscious seeds that were planted that made you want to get into aerospace, eventually communications, and kind of become and evolve into who you are? What were those early things, even from a communication standpoint? What were you witnessing that just kind of was in there until it became who you are today and what your vocation is?
Yeah. So the pilot stuff came from my grandfather was a pilot. He was a
Yeah,
World War II bomber pilot. He was a commercial airline pilot. And I had an interest in planes. And it was pretty much the only interest I had as a kid. It wasn't a real passion. I just didn't really care for much else. And so planes were, once I said I liked planes, my family said, "Oh, planes, excellent. We'll give you everything there is to do with planes," because it was the only gift idea that they had. And so that was a core facet. And my father was a very practical person. He had a workshop outside. He taught us woodworking, metalwork. And so building stuff and designing things was a part of my life. And that followed through school. Maths was a simple subject for me. I didn't find it difficult. I got to build things, so choosing a university degree, engineering made sense. And in parallel to that, it turned out the Air Force was willing to train me to fly for free. So that was a lot of fun. So
yeah.
I went through that process as well. And so those things were very natural for me. When it came to communication, the process of going through interviews for the Air Force, going through early pilot training, was a wake-up call for me that talking a lot did not make me a good communicator, and talking in inappropriate situations did not mean I was the most interesting person in the room. So I had a lot of examples of how not to do it that were very directly pointed out to me. And then entering my career when I started in engineering, worked through telecoms and some other organizations and industries, communication was a key part of every day. And I had a lot of failures, but some successes. And then I built on those successes until the sort of 2020 timeframe, where I'd become recognized in my organization as someone who could communicate well. I was regularly asked to teach others. For example, a department that I had nothing to do with came and asked me to train 300 people on how to give an executive update because I was known for how to do that in the company.
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst for me doing what I do now, which is teaching other people individually and in big companies.
So when it comes to orators, communicators in the world today, who do you admire? Who do you think does it really well in the business realm?
I'd like to answer the question with a slightly different slant,
Sure.
rather than who is a good orator, because it's easy to find people who do well. I think more useful for someone listening to this is who can help you do it well while pointing at those big orators.
Yeah.
And there's one name that stands out above all others, and it's Jeremy Connell Waite. He is the chief storyteller at IBM, but he also has a passion for storytelling and communication at work. And he breaks down the most famous speeches through history and the best speeches and talks that are given now, and breaks down in a really, really easy to consume way how and why they work and how individuals can apply those lessons to their own methods. So if you want to find a great set of speakers to be inspired by, check out Jeremy Connell Waite, and he will not only point you to them, but he will show you how they did it well.
That's wonderful. So, who's been your hero? Who's been your inspirational force in your life that's allowed you to navigate to where you are today?
There isn't one individual, it's always a collection, and it's usually the people who are near and around me, but just a little ahead in any of the areas I want to be. So in my work, I've just mentioned Jeremy. I absolutely a huge amount of admiration for him. But then in another area of my life, Rob Alban, was my best friend, and he stood up at the beginning of the year at a work event, was asked what are his goals, and two of his five goals were to be the best husband and best father he could be. And then he talked about how he would do that, and that just inspired me to do better, to be a better person.
Yeah.
So there's no one person, there's no list of famous people. It's the people around me who demonstrate the values that I aspire to and live them and make do it in a way that makes it accessible for me to grow and develop and then hopefully pass those on to others.
So, what is that energy every day the alarm clock goes off to get your feet on the ground and to do this work, to inspire people, to not only that, but to stay up on things, to continue your education and to be effective, take care of your own soul. What is that energy every day for you to do it at a high level?
Oh, it's always been there. I've always been passionate about doing something. So while as a kid I didn't have a direct passion, whatever I did, I did it well. So from my mid-teens, and I'll always say yes to an opportunity. So now I get up at 5:45. I'm not a great morning person, but that's when the day starts to walk the dog, get lunch ready for my daughter before school. And if I'm doing things that bring me joy and satisfaction and are contributing to my family, to myself, to my community, then those things are worth doing. And I don't have to find inspiration for that. Those things are worth doing. The value is obvious and inherent in the tasks, in the activities. And I just enjoy 90% of what I spend my time doing. And
Yeah.
that is motivation in itself.
So there is a broadcaster in Kansas City. He does Royals games, and his name is Rex Hudler. He used to be a baseball player. He's larger than life. And I met him right around the time the pandemic began, and he was even larger than life in person. Like I didn't think it was possible. Have you ever met a figure like that that was transformative, that really had this vernacular for communicating and doing it in a very energetic way where you like literally met him and thought, wow, this is crazy. Like it's more than I thought.
Yes, there are individuals that come to mind who are they physically dominate a space that they're in, even though they're not physically large. But their presence is such that it fills a room. And there are a few in the area that I live at the moment, and they are characters who give. Now, there are some others who will be in the room who will be loud and domineering or always try and have a funny story, whether the situation calls for it or not. Those people don't have the same presence because they are forcing themselves in the room. The people who are giving, but also listening and able to tell that story, able to deliver a clear message, and able to connect other people in the room, they are really, really good communicators. And I like that you mentioned a sports commentator. They are not just, in my opinion, but actually through studies, some of the best communicators in the world.
Yeah.
There was a study of soccer commentators from the UK. This was done around the early 2000s. And the analysis was how many mistakes do they make grammatically, mispronunciation, tripping over their words, long pauses, things like that. How many mistakes did they make compared to people in all sorts of other professions? And sports commentators were by far and away the most incredible communicators, making the fewest mistakes
Uh-huh.
and giving the largest number of words because they are constantly talking. And here's what they did that if we could all do this, it would be amazing. They are able to take a visual situation and describe it for people on the radio to be engaged, to understand, to follow along, to be entertained. And that is a phenomenal skill.
Unbelievable. There's a new guy that we got on the radio. Rex is more on the TV side. So he always has a baseball in his hand and he's waving around and he's just passionate about it. But there's another guy that's on the radio that always describes what the weather's like in San Francisco. Like he'll even say there's a little sailboat on the horizon. Like he just paints this visual that you don't need all that, but you also get this idea that it's by the bay, it's in San Francisco, it's a little windy, there's going to be these weird winds, which they talked about at the Super Bowl. There was this weird crosswind that exists out there in California because of the way the body. So when you start pulling those visuals in, you get a better idea because at the end of the day, whether it's soccer or it's baseball, all of those weather patterns have a way that the ball interacts and the way that it may go into a goal or go over the fence.
They do. They do. So they connect to the sport. They also do a great thing of killing the time in between
Yeah.
nothing, between the
Yes.
two events. There's a lot of downtime in sports that needs to be covered, particularly in things like baseball and football when the teams are changing and so on. So those things are a very natural way to fill that time, whilst also drawing the listener
Yeah.
in to feel like they're there and part of the experience, which is
Absolutely.
getting harder to do given that very few of us do one thing at a time anymore. Even if
Mhm.
we're listening to something, we're looking on the phones or computer or doing something else in and around the home. So keeping people connected requires very good, clear communication.
So, what is the best speech that you've ever witnessed in your life?
The best speech. Obviously, mine given at my own wedding was hands down the best speech.
Of
No,
course.
no. I have a whole room of people who would say that is not the case. The 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 best speech ever. I struggle to answer this because there are a lot of them. Um, I don't have a particular favorite. I'd go back to Jeremy's work and say when I'm looking for a speech that's inspiring or a speech that is helping understand a problem. For example, Jane Goodall, she gave she talked about the same topic for 50 years, but gave 5 or 6 different speeches
Yeah.
depending on the audience. If she was trying to inspire action, she would craft the talk in a different way for if she was educating children.
Yep.
Same core topic, but different structures, sometimes pulling on empathy, sometimes pulling on logic, using all the different forms of rhetoric. So take Jane Goodall is a fantastic example
Yeah.
of how to take one topic and make it interesting, relevant, and impactful to different audiences for 50 years.
At the beginning of this year, because the whole political environment's been so dire in America, I wanted to read really good books that would be uplifting. Like I read one about Fred Rogers. I listened to him on audio, which is even better. But there was one where a journalist followed Jane, and it was fascinating, like her going through her life. And I've seen her in different interviews, and it's always a little different flavor. But the reason why I'm asking you about this speech is I saw Bill Clinton 20 years ago, and I still remember what he said. When he walked in that room and those doors opened up, it was like he was given the State of the Union. You know how there's that whole pageantry of the doors opening and they announce it? It was like that when he came in. The chlorides and everything in that room just changed instantly. And it was
Yeah.
there the whole time he was on stage. So it's amazing how people can marshal that level of command.
Oh, they really can. And if anyone wants to get an idea of what that's like from the other side, Aaron Sorkin did a fantastic job of this when he created The West Wing.
Yeah.
Uh, old TV show. It was what 25 plus
Great.
years ago
Yeah.
now. But and regardless of one's politics, it is a masterclass in
Yes.
storytelling. And there is an episode that includes Jed Bartlett, the president in the show, preparing for the State of the Union and then asking permission to go into the House. And he really shows that like what that situation is and how meaningful it can be.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight and ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you walked up and there was a film projector next to the young version of you, and you clicked the play button, a 60-second highlight reel of everything that's happened in your life took place, would you believe that this is the life that you've lived and orchestrated?
Oh no, no. The things that have happened in my life, my wife's life, the family life that we have together, the highs, the lows are so far beyond what I would have expected. However, even when I was 18, I would still take every opportunity that came along. So I would believe that it was possible. I just would have thought it was very, very unlikely that these different things would all come together. The highlights reel and the lowlights reels would be that would be quite something to watch.
So let's say you walked into a room right now of everybody that knows you in a business sense throughout all these years, and you walk up to the podium and you can tell that room one fun story about you. Maybe jumping out of an airplane, the best sporting event you went to, a seminal concert live experience, some moment in your life that's fun that would humanize you a little bit. What would be the story you would tell that room?
Well, if I wanted to feel a little bit awkward, probably the time I was trapped in a toilet by a leopard.
Oh wow.
That was a pretty awkward situation. That one normally gets a few chuckles.
That's great. I mean, I've seen those clips online where people are like, a big, huge animal comes up, and it's like, what are you gonna do? Um, so, of everything, if we pull the camera up and you look at the tracks in your life of everything that you've done and overcome and achieved, the highs and lows, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Making it this far,
Yeah.
there were so many places where I could have taken different turns, been tempted by poor choices, poor life choices, easy career choices. And I think that being brave enough to make some of the hard decisions led to where I am now. So, for example, 5 rounds of IVF, the infertility treatment, failed. taking that sixth round was one of the hardest decisions my wife and I ever made, but without it, wouldn't have my daughter now.
Wow.
So, but in the moment, just incredibly tough decisions.
Yeah.
And toss a coin, and the outcome was good.
There you go. So at the end of the day, Chris, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I am harder on myself than I need to be, and I still have room to grow in so many areas, but I'm surrounded by the right people, and those people are helping me help them. They're helping me help myself. So I think a work in progress. That's how I am. I've done great things. I've enjoyed some of the stuff I've done. A couple of regrets here and there,
Yeah.
but a work in progress, but very much enjoying the journey.
So let's say we get off this call and you can hop into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history. What do you want to see unfold? And it won't be a weird Back to the Future tear in time. You just get to see it and you get to come right on back. What would you want to see?
It's the going earlier on, I mentioned I wanted to grow up to be a dinosaur.
Yeah.
I would love to see any part of the big lizard's time frame, but the end, like really, was there a meteorite, the
Yeah.
meteor that came in? Like, is that the
True.
event? I'd love to see that.
That would be great. So, the one thing I want to I want to conclude with this, and it wasn't originally something that was in my head, but we've really gone in such good directions here. I think about AI and about how it can help human beings more than anything else. I try not to go down that destructive path. I had someone at one point explain to me that the one reason why we should hold on to AI being a positive force is that it's an aggregate of all human questionings and everything that we're curious about and everything that we're trying to do. And overwhelmingly, there's going to be more good that's going to be pumped into Chat GPT every day than that's bad. But I think about it from a communication standpoint and even from the arts and music, how we all want things to be human and organic and we don't want to lose that touch. So, my question to you is this: how do you believe AI can be an ally in human beings being better communicators, what you're trying to do with other humans? How do you think that will help us?
I think I believe that it's an enabler. It enables us to close the gaps, some of the gaps we don't even know that we have. So one of the things that makes it hard for people to progress, for people to advance individually or within their careers, is we don't know what we don't know. Well, the AI does and can help us identify those.
Yeah,
So when it comes to communicating, if someone wanted to give a status update on the work that they were doing to their boss, you could just speak out into the system and give your status update and ask it to put it in a more executive friendly structure. As long as we take the time to learn and not just accept the output and send it off,
yeah,
as long as we also use it to learn so that next time we give a clearer update, it's the personal tutor for $20 a month.
yeah.
That none of us, no, very few people can afford that to have that level of help. It's the personal assistant. It's the expert that can give you guidance, and then we choose what to do with it.
What a great answer. So, the most important thing right now, if anybody wants to get your books, they want to reach out, questions, hire you, any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
Come find me on my website, which is chrisfenning.com, or check me out on LinkedIn. That is my social hangout.
Okay. Chris, what a wonderful conversation. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your work. It's been wonderful. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes. All right.